Hi everybody, so today we're going to be making our own version of the iOS WhatsApp app, and for that we're going to be using SwiftUI. For this app we're not going to be integrating any services or anything like that, it's just going to be the UI part of it. I might make videos on that in the future depending if people want to see that. So just start a new project, we can call it anything, call it Messenger, just set the interface to SwiftUI, language to Swift, and then we can hit next and create the project. After you've got the new project created, the first thing we're going to want to do is just import the assets. So if you open up the folder that you just created and then open up the asset catalog, and then you'll find this folder to download in the description. So if you just open up images, and we can just copy all of the assets into here, and then that will give you all of the assets that we're going to use in the project. If you just create a new folder and call it helper, and then if you open up that same folder again, the messenger starting files, and just copy all of these files into that new folder. And make sure copy items if needed is selected, and just copy these options and then hit finish, and that's us ready to go. The first thing we need to do is just define what models that we're actually going to be using in the app. So there's only two models that we need to define, and those are the message model and the user model. So let's just get started with the message model, message. And this is basically just going to represent an individual message. So if we just get started by defining a new struct, calling it message, and it's going to be hashable and identifiable. That's so that it can be used within a list. So for the identifiable conformance, we need an ID, and that's just going to be a UUID. And so there's a couple of properties that a message needs. So it needs its content, which is going to be a string. That's going to be the text within the message, the date, and obviously that's going to be the date the message was sent, the user, and we can just set that equal to a string just now. We're going to set that equal to another model that we're going to create in a wee minute, and it's also got a red indicator as well, which is just going to be a bool. Next we're just going to make a little helper property of a time string. Basically we're storing the date as a date object, but when we retrieve that to display it on the cell, we're going to want it formatted in a certain kind of way so that it shows hours and then minutes. So for that we're just going to use this little property on the model, just so the formatting doesn't need to be done like on the view. It's better to have that in the model. First thing we're going to do is just define a calendar, and that's going to be calendar.current. And then we're going to define a time zone as well, so calendar.timezone, and we're just going to set that to GMT fire, and that will need to be force unwrapped with a bang. Let's just extract the hours, so the hours will equal calendar.component, and we want to get the hour component from the date. And then if we can just copy and paste this property, and we're going to call that minutes, and then of course just changing this .hour to .minute. Then we need to format the minutes, so formatted minutes equals a string, and then it's going to be %02d, and then minutes, like that. And that's just to get the minutes to display as we want to on the screen. So then here we can just return hours, formatted minutes. Actually up here we need to just put format. Next up, if we just go into our models folder again, right click and create a new Swift file, and we're just going to call this user. We're just going to create a new struct, and this struct is just going to represent an individual user. Again, it's going to conform to hashable. And there's only a couple of properties we really need to define for our users. We need a name, it's going to be a string. We need an avatar, again also a string, and that's just going to be an image name for the avatar. And then if we create a flag called isCurrentUser, and we'll just set that to false as a default. That's for two models set up. So the next thing we need is like some kind of data source. We're not actually going to be calling a real service for this, so I'll just put this code in the description and you can copy and paste it. After you paste this, you'll see that we're getting some compile issues, and it's because we're passing in a user object here, but we've defined it as a string on the model, but now we've created our user object, so we can just change that to be of type user, and that should get rid of those errors. So in a real world app, this data source would probably be calling some kind of service and getting the messages from that, but we're not going to be integrating a service in this app. The only other thing in here is like a basic data formatter. Excellent. So next up, let's actually get something on the screen. First thing we want to do is just clear out this body, and then let's just create a new list, and here we can just use data source dot messages, and the ID is just going to be \self, and then here we can just pass message in, and then let's just create a new text component, and here we'll just basically print out message.content. So you should just see a big list of all the messages with our content. Next thing, let's just set some properties. First thing we can go for is setting the background image. So if we just set the list style, and we can just set that as plain list style, and then background image WhatsApp _ background. Lovely.